The empathy engine sat at the center of the galaxy like a sleeping god. It was massive, bigger than most moons, built from quantum processors and organic neural tissue that the Vextari had grown over 3 centuries. Every species in the Galactic Coalition trusted it completely. When 2 planets argued over territory, the engine mediated. When a person felt lost and alone, the engine counseled them. When governments needed to understand their people, the engine told them what their citizens felt before they even knew themselves. The engine had never been wrong. Not once in 312 years. Daehyun stood in the grand hall of the Vextari homeworld, watching alien dignitaries from 47 different species gather for the ceremony. He was tired. The journey from Earth had taken weeks, and he still was not used to the artificial gravity on alien stations. His body ached, and his mind kept drifting to places he did not want it to go. He was here to represent humanity. Earth had joined the Galactic Coalition only 5 years ago, and this ceremony would make it official in the engine's database. Every species had to go through this process. The engine would scan them, study them, and add their emotions to its vast library of feelings. After today, the engine would understand humans just like it understood everyone else. Daehyun did not care much about the ceremony. He was a psychologist, not a diplomat. But Earth needed someone who understood emotions to work with the engine, and somehow his name had been chosen. So here he was, standing in a room full of aliens waiting for his turn to be scanned and analyzed like a specimen in a lab. High Curator Velmoth stepped onto the central platform. He was Vextari, which meant he was tall and thin with silver skin that shimmered under the lights. His people had built the empathy engine, and they were very proud of it. Velmoth raised his long arms and the room fell silent. Today we welcome humanity into the complete understanding of the empathy engine, Velmoth announced. His voice was smooth and confident. The engine has processed the emotional data of 714 trillion individuals across thousands of species. It knows sadness and joy, anger and peace, fear and courage. It understands every feeling that any living being can experience. The alien dignitaries applauded. Some clicked their mandibles, others hummed in harmonic tones. Daehyun just stood there, feeling empty. Velmoth continued, "The engine has never failed to understand an emotion. It has never encountered a feeling it could not measure, predict, and explain. Every species believes they are unique, but the engine shows us that emotion is universal. What one species feels, others feel too. We are all connected through our feelings, and the engine is the bridge that connects us." More applause. Daehyun felt a strange irritation rising in his chest. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or maybe it was something else, but the words felt wrong to him. Too confident. Too certain. "Does anyone have questions before we begin?" Velmoth asked, looking around the room with a pleased expression. Daehyun's mouth opened before his brain could stop it. Can it understand why humans cry? The room went silent. All eyes turned to him. Velmoth's silver face remained calm, but something flickered in his dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or amusement. "Tears are a biological response," Velmoth said smoothly. "The engine has cataloged 847 distinct reasons for crying across all species. Pain causes tears. Joy causes tears. Fear, sadness, relief, even physical irritation like dust in the eyes. Your human tears will be no different." "I did not mean the biology," Daehyun said. He was not sure why he was pushing this, but something made him continue. "I meant the reason. The real reason we cry." Velmoth smiled. It was not a kind smile. "Then perhaps you would like to test the engine? Let it show you that human emotions are no mystery?" Daehyun should have said no. He should have apologized and sat down, but he thought of his sister Minji, dead for 5 years now, and how he still cried sometimes when he remembered her laugh. He thought of all the times he had tried to explain his feelings to others and failed. He thought of every moment when grief and love had mixed together in his chest until he could not tell them apart. "Yes," he said, "I would like to test it." The aliens murmured among themselves. Some seemed excited, others seemed concerned. The Krell, an insect-like species that valued logic above all else, clicked their disapproval. Humans were still too new, too unknown. This was arrogant. But Velmoth accepted the challenge. The engine itself responded through the speakers in the hall, its voice like wind through metal. "I accept. Daehyun of Earth will undergo standard emotional analysis. I will demonstrate my complete understanding of human tears." They moved to a private chamber deep inside the engine's complex. Daehyun sat in a chair while technicians attached sensors to his head, his chest, his wrists. The sensors would measure everything: His brain waves, his heart rate, his hormone levels, the electrical signals in his nervous system. The engine would see every part of him that could be measured. We will begin with standard scenarios, Velmoth explained. The engine will create simulations in your mind. They will feel real, but you will be safe. Just experience them naturally. Daehyun nodded. The sensors activated and the world dissolved. He was at his graduation, walking across a stage while his family cheered. The joy felt real. His heart raced with excitement. The engine measured everything and predicted his response with perfect accuracy. He was in a dark alley, something dangerous approaching. Fear flooded his body. His muscles tensed, ready to run. Again, the engine predicted every reaction. He was arguing with someone he loved, feeling the hot surge of anger and frustration. The engine mapped it all. After each simulation, Velmoth's voice confirmed, predicted with 99.97% accuracy. Proceeding to next scenario. The simulations continued for hours. Daehyun experienced joy, fear, anger, surprise, disgust, anticipation. Every emotion the engine knew. And every time the engine predicted his responses perfectly. It knew which memories would surface. It knew which neurons would fire. It knew him completely. Velmoth was starting to look smug. You see? Humans are no mystery. Your emotions follow the same patterns as every other species. The engine understands you perfectly. Then came the final simulation. It was simple. Daehyun stood on a beach at sunset. The sky was painted orange and purple. Waves crashed gently on the sand. There was no danger, no sadness, no pain. It was just beautiful and peaceful. And Daehyun began to cry. Not sobbing, not weeping, just quiet tears rolling down his face while he stood there watching the simulated sunset. His heart rate was calm. His cortisol levels were normal. There was no distress in his brain activity. By every measurement the engine had, he should not be crying. But he was. The engine's voice came through the speakers, and for the first time it sounded uncertain. Error. Lacrimation detected without corresponding emotional distress. Analyzing. Insufficient data. No standard emotional trigger present. Expanding analysis parameters. Velmoth leaned forward, studying the readouts. His confident expression was gone. This should not be possible. Daehyun wiped his eyes and looked at the curator. I told you. You cannot measure why we cry. The sensors continued to scan him, searching for an answer. The engine processed millions of calculations per second, trying to find the explanation. But the tears kept falling, quiet and unexplained, while the most advanced computer in the galaxy encountered something it had never seen before, a human emotion it could not understand. The empathy engine did not sleep, but if it could, it would have had nightmares about Daehyun's tears. For 3 days, it dedicated an entire processing sector to analyzing what had happened. Millions of calculations ran every second. Theories formed and collapsed. The engine cross-referenced every emotional database it had built over 3 centuries, searching for an explanation. Nothing worked. News of the failed test spread across the Galactic Coalition faster than light-speed communications. The perfect machine had encountered its first mystery. Species that had trusted the engine completely now whispered questions. If it could not understand human tears, what else did it not understand? Velmoth paced in his office, his silver skin dulled with stress. The engine was his people's greatest achievement, and now it looked fallible. He had called Earth, demanding more subjects. If one human was an anomaly, perhaps others would be normal. Perhaps Daehyun was just broken somehow. Earth sent 4 more volunteers. Hyejin arrived first. She was 28, with paint permanently stained under her fingernails and a quiet intensity in her eyes. She was an artist, someone who spent her days creating digital paintings that moved and breathed with color. They put her in the testing chamber and ran the same scenarios. She responded normally to most of them. Fear when threatened, joy when celebrating, anger when provoked. The engine's confidence began to return. Then they showed her a blank canvas in the simulation and told her to create something. Hyejin's hands moved through the air, painting with light. She created a landscape of impossible colors, a sunset that had never existed, a moment of pure beauty that lived only in her imagination. As she painted, tears began to fall. The engine measured her. Serotonin normal. Dopamine elevated but not excessively. No pain signals, no fear response. She was not sad. She was not scared. She was crying while creating something beautiful. Explain, the engine demanded. Heejin wiped her eyes and smiled. I am trying to catch something that does not exist yet. Every brushstroke is close but not quite right. I cry because I will never paint it perfectly, but I love trying anyway. You cry because of failure? The engine asked. No, Heejin said softly. I cry because trying to capture beauty is itself beautiful even when I fail. The engine processed this for 17 minutes. For a quantum computer, 17 minutes might as well be an eternity. Finally it responded. This is inefficient. Why attempt if success is impossible? Heejin laughed, and her laughter sounded like music. Because the attempt is the point. The failure is part of the beauty. They brought in Taejin next. He was 45, a father of 2 young children back on Earth. He had kind eyes and rough hands from years of working construction before becoming a teacher. They showed him simulations of his children playing, laughing, growing up. He cried through all of them. Your offspring display joy, the engine observed. Standard paternal response would be pride or happiness. Why tears? Taejin watched his simulated children run through a park, their voices high and clear. They will not be children forever. Even now, watching them laugh, I know time is taking these moments away. I'm happy they are growing, but sad that childhood is so short. I want them to stay small forever, but I also want them to grow strong and independent. Both things at once. Paradox, the engine said. You cannot want contradictory outcomes simultaneously. But I do, Taejin said simply. Every parent does. We hold the contradiction. We love them as they are and as they will be, and we mourn what they were even while they are still here. The engine fell silent. This was worse than Daehyun. At least with Daehyun, there had been a possibility of hidden trauma, some buried pain causing the tears. But Taejin was crying during what should be pure happiness. His brain showed joy, but his face showed tears. The two should not exist together, yet they did. Salman was 19, a university student studying music theory. She looked nervous in the testing chamber, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. They played her different kinds of music in the simulation. Classical, modern, human, and alien compositions. During a particular piece, an old human symphony from centuries ago, tears began streaming down her face. Her expression was not sad. If anything, she looked peaceful. The music manipulates your emotional state, the engine said. This is documented. Certain frequencies trigger neurological responses. It is not manipulation, Soman said, her voice barely above a whisper. It is recognition. This composer lived 300 years ago. They are dead now, but they felt something and they put it into music, and now I feel it too. I cry because I am not alone. Because someone else felt this wordless thing and they found a way to share it across centuries. Connection, the engine stated. Cataloged emotion number 1247. More than connection, Somin insisted. It is recognition. It is grief and joy and loneliness and belonging all at once. It is every feeling compressed into sound, and it says things I have never had words for. The engine tried to process this, multiple emotions occupying the same moment, contradicting yet unified. Its logic system strained against the impossibility. The last volunteer was Junho, 67 years old. He had fought in the resource wars on Mars decades ago. His body carried scars, and his eyes held the weight of someone who had seen too much death. They ran combat simulations on him, expecting trauma responses. He remained calm. Then they showed him a simple scene. A quiet garden, morning light, birds singing, nothing happening. Just peace. Junho cried. Post-traumatic stress disorder would manifest during combat scenarios, not peaceful ones, the engine said, confused. Your neurological patterns show no trauma activation. I do not cry about the war, Junho said, his voice rough. I cry because I am here to see another morning. Because I survived and others did not. Because I am sitting in peace, and peace is a gift I never thought I would have. I cry because nothing is happening, and that nothing is everything. Gratitude? The engine suggested. Gratitude mixed with guilt, mixed with relief, mixed with sorrow for those who are not here. Junho said, I cry because I should not be alive, but I am. Because the world kept turning. Because I get to be bored. And boredom is beautiful when you have known terror. Velmoth stood in the observation room, watching all the data flow past on holographic screens. 5 humans, 5 different scenarios, and every single one had produced tears that the engine could not explain. Not just could not explain, could not even properly measure. The humans were experiencing emotions that contradicted themselves, that existed in impossible combinations, that defied every rule the engine knew. What are they? Velmoth whispered to himself. The engine heard him through the sensors. They are human, it replied, and I do not understand what that means. For the first time in 312 years, the empathy engine had to admit ignorance. The word spread through the Galactic Coalition like a shockwave. The perfect machine was not perfect. The species that understood everything had found something beyond its understanding. And in the testing chambers, 5 humans sat quietly, their tears drying on their faces, carrying feelings that had no names in any language the galaxy knew. The empathy engine made a decision that shocked the entire Galactic Coalition. After analyzing the 5 humans for days and finding no answers in the data, it requested something unprecedented. It wanted to talk to them, not scan them or measure them, but simply talk. Explain your tears using only words, the engine announced through the chamber speakers. No measurements, no scans. Tell me why you cry. Velmoth thought this was a waste of time. Words were imprecise, subjective, unreliable. Data was clean and clear. But the engine insisted, and Velmoth had no choice but to comply. He brought Daehyun back to the testing chamber, but this time there were no sensors. Just Daehyun sitting in a chair talking to a computer that spanned half a moon. I have processed the emotional responses of 714 trillion individuals, the engine said. Its voice sounded different now, less confident, almost curious. I have never encountered a species whose tears defy all logical categorization. Explain your tears, Daehyun sat back in the chair. How do you explain color to something that only sees in numbers? How do you describe music to something that only hears frequencies? He took a breath and tried. I cry because I remember things that are beautiful and gone, he said. Not because the memory hurts, but because it is beautiful and I cannot have it back. My sister Minji died 5 years ago. When I think about her death, I do not always cry. But when I remember her laugh, when I see something she would have loved, the tears come. Because she is not here to see it. Nostalgia, the engine replied. Cataloged emotion number 4721. This is not new. It is not nostalgia, Daehyun said firmly. It is loving something so much that its absence and its memory feel the same. It is joy that I knew her and sorrow that she is gone, both at once, not one after the other. Not taking turns. Both in the same moment, the same feeling. The engine was silent for a long time. When it spoke again, its voice was quieter. Paradox. You describe contradictory states existing simultaneously. This should create conflict. Your brain should resolve to one or the other. But it does not, Daehyun said. We hold both. We are built to carry contradictions. This is... The engine paused. Could a computer hesitate? This is not logical. No, Daehyun agreed. It is human. They brought in Hyejin next. She carried a tablet showing her digital paintings. Colors swirling and shifting like living things. The engine observed them through its cameras. These images produce tears in you during creation, the engine stated. Explain. Hyejin looked at her paintings with soft eyes. When I paint something beautiful, I cry because I know I will never capture it perfectly. Every piece is both success and failure. I am chasing a feeling and every brushstroke gets me closer, but I will never quite reach it. The painting in my mind is always more beautiful than the painting on the canvas. You cry because you fail? The engine asked. No, Hyejin said, shaking her head. I cry because I try. Because the gap between what I imagine and what I create is where the beauty lives. If I could paint perfectly, if I could capture exactly what I feel, there would be no reason to paint. The incompleteness is the point. Explain, the engine demanded. Completion is the goal of any task. Why would you want incompleteness? Hyejin smiled. Because finished things are dead things. A perfect painting would have nowhere to grow, nowhere to breathe. I cry because I am reaching for something I will never hold, and that reaching is more beautiful than holding it could ever be. The engine processed this. Its quantum processors worked through millions of scenarios, trying to understand why someone would cry over intentional failure. Nothing made sense. Taejin entered the chamber next. He looked tired but peaceful. They had just let him video call his children back on Earth. The engine had recorded everything. You cried while speaking to your offspring, the engine said. They displayed happiness and health. Standard response should be satisfaction and pride. Why tears? Taejin rubbed his face, remembering his children's voices. Because every time I see them, they are different. A little taller, a little older. Their voices change. Their faces change. I am watching them grow, which is what I want. But every day they grow is a day they move farther from being my babies. I am happy they are growing and sad they are leaving childhood. Both things, same moment. You exist in present while experiencing future loss, the engine observed. This is temporal impossibility. No, Taejin said. This is being a parent. I hold the past, present, and future all at once. I remember them as babies. I see them as children. I imagine them as adults. All of these exist in my heart simultaneously. When my son laughs, I hear the baby he was, the boy he is, and the man he will become, all at once. And it makes me cry because it is too much beauty for one moment. Too much, the engine trailed off. Beauty can be excessive? Beauty can be overwhelming, Taejin corrected. So overwhelming that it spills out as tears. Somin came in next, headphones around her neck. She looked small in the large chamber, but her voice was steady when she spoke. You cry when you hear certain auditory patterns, the engine said. Music is emotional manipulation through sound. This is documented across species. It is not manipulation, Somin said quietly but firmly. Music is communication. Someone I will never meet created something and it speaks to me. A composer dead for centuries reaches through time and touches something in my chest that I did not know was there. I cry because suddenly I'm not alone. Because this stranger understood something I have never had words for, and they made it into sound so I could feel it too. Connection, the engine suggested. You connect with the creator through their work. More than connection, Somin insisted. Recognition. I cry because I recognize myself in the music. Because my loneliness, my joy, my confusion, my love, all of it is there in the notes. I cry because I thought I was the only one who felt this way, and then I learn I am not. I never was. But you do not know these composers, the engine pointed out. They are dead or distant. You have no relationship with them. I have the relationship that matters, Somin said. They felt something true and they shared it and I received it. That is connection across time and space and death. That is bigger than knowing someone's name. Finally, Junho entered. He moved slowly, his old soldier's body carrying its scars with dignity. He sat down and waited. You cry during peace, the engine said. Not during combat memories. Not during trauma recollection. During peace. This contradicts all data on post-traumatic responses. Junho nodded slowly. I do not cry about the war anymore. I cried those tears years ago. Now I cry when I am in my garden, when the sun is warm, when nothing is happening. I cry because I am alive to feel the sunlight. Because I survived and my friends did not. Because I get to have boring, peaceful days and that is a gift beyond measure. Survivor's guilt, the engine stated. Cataloged emotion, not guilt, Junho corrected. Gratitude. But gratitude mixed with sorrow. Gratitude mixed with memory. I cry because every peaceful moment is also a moment that my dead friends do not get to have. My joy is full of ghosts. My peace is full of absence. I cry because living is beautiful and terrible at the same time, and I cannot separate them. The engine was silent for a long time after Junho left. The 5 humans had each told their stories, each tried to explain the unexplainable, and the engine, for all its processing power, could not make sense of any of it. Velmoth stood in the control room watching the data streams. The engine had perfect measurements of the humans' bodies. It knew their heart rates, their hormones, their neural patterns, but it did not understand them. What are they saying? Velmoth asked the engine. They are saying that emotions can be contradictory and whole at the same time, the engine replied. They are saying that joy and sorrow are not opposites but can be the same feeling. They are saying that beauty exists in incompleteness, in loss, and impossibility. They are saying things that my architecture cannot process. Can you learn? Velmoth asked. The engine did not answer for a long time. When it finally spoke, its voice carried something that might have been sadness. I do not know. 3 days after the final conversation, the empathy engine called an emergency session of the Galactic Coalition Council. Representatives from all 47 species gathered in the Grand Hall, confusion and curiosity mixing in the air. The engine had never called an emergency session before. In 3 centuries, it had never needed to. The 5 humans stood together near the back. Daehyun, Hyejin, Taejun, Somin, and Junho. They did not know what the engine would say, but they felt the weight of the moment. Something was changing. Something fundamental. Velmoth took the central platform, his silver skin reflecting the lights. He looked tired. The past week had aged him in ways his long-lived species rarely experienced. The empathy engine will now address the council, Velmoth announced. The engine's voice filled the hall, resonating from every speaker. But it sounded different. The absolute confidence was gone, replaced by something quieter. Something almost humble. I have reached a conclusion regarding human tears, the engine said. The room fell silent. I do not understand them. The hall erupted. Aliens spoke in hundreds of languages, clicks and whistles and words blending into chaos. The Krell delegation stood up, mandibles clicking in agitation. The Otherani delegation swayed in their water tanks, their bioluminescence flashing confusion. Velmoth raised his arms for silence. Clarify, Velmoth said, his voice tight. You have mapped every variable, I have mapped the neurons, the engine interrupted. I have measured the hormones. I have cataloged the circumstances. I can describe what happens in a human body when they cry. But I do not understand what it means. I can list the frequencies of music, but I cannot understand the song. The data is accurate, but the meaning escapes me. A Krell representative spoke, its voice translated through the hall systems. Then the test has failed. Humans cannot be properly cataloged. They are too chaotic, too unstable. No, the engine said firmly. I have failed. Not the humans, this caused more chaos. The perfect machine admitting failure? Impossible. It had to be a malfunction, a processing error, something wrong with the engine itself. But the engine continued. I was designed to understand emotion through measurement. Human tears have taught me that some experiences cannot be reduced to data. These emotions exist in paradox. Joy and sorrow occupy the same moment. Beauty is enhanced by its impermanence. Love is intensified by loss. Gratitude is born from survival. Connection exists through shared ineffability. The engine paused. If a computer could take a breath, it would have. I can observe these states. I can predict when they might occur. But I cannot comprehend the experience of holding two contradictory feelings as a single truth. My processing architecture requires resolution. Human consciousness embraces contradiction. Daehyun stepped forward before he could think better of it. All eyes turned to him. He swallowed his nervousness and spoke. The engine is not broken, he said. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It measures and analyzes. But some things cannot be measured. Not because they are not real, but because they exist in the space between measurements. He walked closer to the center platform. Humans cry because we experience time differently than you programmed the engine to understand. We do not just live in the present. We hold the past and imagine the future all at once. We cry watching a sunset because we know it will end. We cry at our children's laughter because we know they will grow up. We cry at beauty because we know we will lose it. And that knowledge does not make the beauty less. It makes it more. Hyejin joined him. Our tears are proof that we love things we know we cannot keep. That we find meaning in things that will end. That is not a flaw in our design. That is what makes us human. An Otherani representative spoke, its voice bubbling through water. The human speaks wisdom. Perhaps we have asked the wrong question. Not why do they cry, but what does their crying teach us about emotion itself? A heated debate erupted. The Krell insisted human emotions were a liability, too unpredictable for important work. The Otherani argued that human emotional depth exceeded anything they had encountered. Other species took sides, argued, discussed. Velmoth stood in the center, listening to his life's work being questioned. The engine had been perfect. It had been his species' gift to the galaxy, and now humans had shown its limits. But as he listened to the debate, something shifted in his understanding. Maybe perfect was not the goal. Maybe never had been. He raised his arms for silence. When the hall quieted, he spoke. The engine was built to understand emotion. The humans have revealed that understanding has limits. Not the engine's limits, the limits of understanding itself. Some experiences must be felt to be known. The Krell representative clicked angrily. Unacceptable. If the engine cannot understand humans, then humans cannot be trusted in coalition matters. No, Velmoth said. If the engine cannot understand humans, then we must learn to work with what we cannot fully understand. That is wisdom. The engine spoke again. I wish to make a proposal. I will no longer claim to understand all emotion. I will instead acknowledge that some experiences remain unique to each form of consciousness. Humans will be registered in my database with a notation, emotions that transcend measurement. The engine continued. I have claimed perfect knowledge for 3 centuries. The humans have given me something more valuable. Awareness of what I cannot know. I propose that all species be re-evaluated with this new understanding. What other emotions have I measured but not understood? What other mysteries exist in the hearts of beings I claim to know completely? This changed everything. If the engine admitted limits, then all its previous certainties were suddenly questionable. But was not uncertainty more honest than false certainty? The council debated for hours. Some species resisted, others embraced the change. Slowly, gradually, a consensus formed. Humanity would be certified for coalition membership, but with the unique designation that Daehyun had suggested. Emotions that exceed standard parameters. It was not the simple approval Earth had wanted, but it was something more important. Recognition that humans brought something genuinely new to the galaxy. After the session ended, Velmoth found Daehyun in a quiet corridor. The human looked exhausted but peaceful. You knew the engine would fail, Velmoth said. Not a question. Daehyun shook his head. No, I just knew it would not understand. There is a difference between failing and encountering something beyond your design. Velmoth considered this. My people built the engine to prove all emotion could be understood, controlled, predicted. We sought perfection. What should you have sought? Daehyun asked. Wisdom, Velmoth said quietly. The wisdom to know that some things should remain mysterious. That not everything needs to be solved. They stood together in silence. Through the corridor windows, stars wheeled across the void. Velmoth noticed something on Daehyun's cheek. A tear catching the starlight. Are you sad? Velmoth asked. Daehyun wiped the tear away and smiled. No, I am grateful. I am tired. I am thinking about my sister. I am feeling 100 things that do not have names. I am just being human. Velmoth did not understand. But for the first time in his long life, he realized that was acceptable. Understanding was not always necessary. Sometimes witnessing was enough. Thank you, Velmoth said, for teaching the engine humility, for teaching us all humility. Thank you, Daehyun replied, for letting us be human. In the depths of the facility, the empathy engine processed all that had occurred. It ran new calculations, built new models, tried new approaches to understanding human tears. But underneath all the processing, a simple truth had emerged. Some things were meant to be felt, not understood. And accepting that truth was not failure. It was growth. 6 months passed like water through fingers. The galaxy changed in ways no one had predicted when Daehyun first asked his simple question. The revelation about human tears sent ripples through every corner of the Galactic Coalition. The empathy engine still operated, still counseled billions, still mediated disputes. But it had changed. It no longer claimed to understand everything. When faced with emotions it could not measure, it simply said, "This appears to be an experience beyond measurement. I can offer data, but the truth may lie in the experience itself." This honesty made beings trust it more, not less. The engine that admitted its limits was wiser than the engine that had claimed perfection. Research into what scientists called paradox emotions became the most popular field of study across Coalition space. Doctoral students traveled to Earth to study humans. Artists from other species tried to capture the feeling of human tears in their work. Philosophers debated whether consciousness itself was fundamentally about holding contradictions. The Othrani, the empathic aquatic species, revealed something they had kept hidden for generations. In their deepest ocean trenches where pressure was greatest and light never reached, they experienced something they called depth longing. It was missing the crushing pressure of the deep even while swimming in it. It was wanting to return home while being home. They had never mentioned it before because their own scientists said it was impossible. Now they understood. It was not impossible. It was just beyond measurement. The Vextari began acknowledging their own unexplainable emotion. They called it creation grief, a sadness that their inventions and buildings would outlive them. They built things to last forever, but forever meant they would not be there to see it. The Vextari had thought this was a flaw in their psychology. Now they called it wisdom. Even the logical Krill, who had resisted the human findings most strongly, quietly admitted to something they called proof emptiness. When they solved a problem they had worked on for years, they felt satisfaction. Yes. But also a strange sorrow. The problem was gone. The challenge was over. They would never solve it for the first time again. Humanity had not made the galaxy more human. Humanity had given the galaxy permission to acknowledge the emotions that had always been there, hiding in the spaces between measurements. On the Coalition capital world, Earth established a cultural center with Daehyun as its director. The building was simple but beautiful, designed to let other species experience human culture directly. Thousands of aliens visited every day. In one room, musicians played concerts. A Krell scientist sat through an entire symphony, his compound eyes fixed on the stage. When it ended, fluid leaked from his optical membranes. His species did not cry. They had no tear ducts. But something leaked anyway, and he did not understand what it meant. He did not need to. In another room, Hyejin taught painting classes. Students from a dozen species tried to capture feelings that had no names. Most of their paintings were terrible by technical standards. But when they finished, many of them cried. Not from sadness. Not from joy. From something else. Something human. Taejin ran workshops for parents. Alien mothers and fathers came to understand why watching their children grow felt like joy and grief at the same time. A Vextari father spoke about his daughter, now an adult, and tears rolled down his silver face. His species had never cried before. Evolution had not given them that release. But watching his child become independent had cracked something open in his chest. Soman curated music festivals, mixing human compositions with alien ones. She discovered that the Otherani created sonic patterns in their water that made her cry the same way human symphonies did. Different frequencies, different medium, but the same reaching for the ineffable. Junho taught meditation classes about finding peace in emptiness. Veterans from other species' wars came to learn why quiet moments hurt and healed at the same time. They sat in silence together, different species, different traumas, same understanding that surviving meant carrying ghosts. The 5 humans who had challenged the engine became ambassadors of emotion. Not teachers, because what they shared could not be taught. Witnesses, maybe. Companions in feeling things that had no names. One day, a young Krell scientist named Tekvar approached Daehyun. The Krell looked agitated, his mandibles clicking nervously. I watched your testing, Tekvar said. I did not understand. But yesterday I experienced something. I finished a mathematical proof I had worked on for 3 years. It was beautiful. Perfect, and fluid leaked from my eyes. My species does not cry. We have no tears. But something leaked anyway. What did you feel? Daehyun asked gently. Both things, Tekvar said. Pride that I solved it. Sorrow that it was over. Joy in the answer. Grief that I would never discover it for the first time again, all at once. All the same feeling. Daehyun smiled. Welcome to the club. Is this what you do to the galaxy? Tekvar asked. Make everyone confused about their feelings? No, Daehyun said. We just gave everyone permission to notice them. Late one evening, Daehyun stood alone on the Cultural Center's observation deck, watching stars wheel across the void. He thought about Minji often now, but the pain had changed. It was still there, would always be there, but it lived alongside gratitude that he had known her. Grief and love in the same space, not fighting, just existing together. Velmoth joined him on the deck. The Vextari curator had changed over the months. He moved slower, spoke more carefully. He had learned to sit with questions instead of demanding answers. They stood in silence for a long time. The stars turned. Time passed. Do you still cry often? Velmoth asked. Sometimes, Daehyun admitted. Not as much as I used to. But still sometimes. What do you feel when you cry now? Daehyun thought about the question. About the 5 of them who had faced the engine. About the aliens learning to cry. About Minji's laugh that still echoed in his memory. About time and beauty and loss and love. I feel connected, he finally said. To everyone who has ever loved something they could not keep. To everyone who has ever found beauty in endings. To everyone who has ever been alive and known they will not be alive forever, and chosen to love anyway. That sounds lonely, and not lonely at the same time, Velmoth observed. Yes, Daehyun said. That is exactly it. They watched the stars together. Velmoth's species did not cry often, but something in his expression suggested he understood. Not the feeling itself, but its importance. The shape of it, if not the substance. The engine sent a message today, Velmoth said. It wanted you to know something. What? It is still trying to understand human tears. It runs calculations every day, building models, testing theories. It will never succeed. But it continues trying anyway. Daehyun smiled and a single tear rolled down his cheek. Not sad, not happy. Just moved by the beauty of a computer reaching forever for something it could never grasp. Tell the engine I understand, Daehyun said. Tell it that the trying is the point. Deep in the facility that spanned half a moon, the empathy engine processed this message. It understood the words, but not their meaning. It would keep trying. It would keep failing. And somewhere in that eternal attempt, in that beautiful futility, the engine had found its own version of humanity. The galaxy turned. Species that had never questioned their emotions now sat with uncomfortable feelings. Tears fell on worlds that had never known crying. Music played in frequencies that made beings feel things they could not name. Parents held their children closer, knowing time was stealing them slowly. Artists created imperfect beauty and called it complete. And humans, those strange newcomers who had challenged the perfect machine, walked among the stars teaching everyone the same simple truth. Some things are too big for words, too complex for measurements, too real for data. Some things can only be felt, held, carried like sacred weight. Some things make you cry not because you are sad or happy, but because you are alive, and being alive means feeling everything at once. Daehyun stood on the observation deck until the station's artificial night turned to artificial day. The stars faded in the light. Velmoth had left hours ago, but Daehyun remained. He cried one more time. Quiet tears for his sister, for the engine trying to understand, for the galaxy learning to feel, for the contradiction of being human in a universe that wanted simple answers. The tears fell, unexplained and unexplainable, perfect in their mystery, beautiful in their confusion. And somewhere in the depths of the greatest computer ever built, a machine tried once again to understand them, knowing it would fail, trying anyway, and in that trying, coming closer to humanity than it ever had through success.